Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to pose a question to you, and I wanted to pose this question in order to highlight why we should get rid of SJWs in the comic industry. And my question is this: how long do you think it's going to take, or do you actually think that this is possible, that SJWs are going to try to physically alter the history of both Marvel and DC? So we'll talk about the big two here and just the big two. Okay. Now, what I'm suggesting is that they wish to completely alter the history of both Marvel and DC. And I don't mean just retconning something. No, they like to retcon things. Look at Captain America becoming a Nazi from the very beginning. They want to change that entire history. But I think that they want to actually physically change the history as well. And the reason I think this, well, I've been thinking this for a while, since I got back into comics and saw the giant push to make things digital. And something highlighted it this week. You probably saw it on Diversity in Comics, where he did a little video about Gail Simone's Twitter drama because she writes Plastic Man. And she put a quote-unquote joke in Plastic Man that some so-called transgendered people actually found offensive. And so she said that when they put out another version of this, when it's actually going to be reprinted, they're going to take out that joke somehow. So they're going to alter the book from its original format into a format that is going to be more palatable to these far leftist people, or people who are offended. I really like the phrase that DNC used. He said, "People who are of the Church of the Perpetually Offended." So they wish to alter that. Now, I've seen this a little bit in other ways. I've seen it, I think it was in a book, a Spider-Man book, where there was a difference between the word balloons of Thing from the actual physical copy to the copy that you would get digitally. They erased one of his word balloons so that it wasn't there. So I've seen it little bits here and there from the difference between a physical copy of the book and the digital copy of the book. And I believe that when SJWs, and it is their intent, when they get a critical mass of people reading things online, that they are going to change the history, physically change the history in those old books. Now, this leads into something I want to do an entirely separate video on, is the fact that, again, I think that the push for digital sales, some stuff like Comixology, but digital sales directly from Marvel and DC, are part of the reason why the comic shops are doing so poorly. I think that the big companies not only don't care about the woes of the comic shops, I think they're actually physically trying to get them to go out of business, because they want all sales for back issues to be digital, so that they themselves get pennies from every digital sale, and they control every issue that a person wants a back issue of, and it comes directly from them. But that's a separate video. But the thing is that if they get that critical mass, if that most people that are reading comics are reading back issues online digitally from official sources, I do believe, and this is why I'm posing it as a question. Okay, this is only a question, I would say. This is not me in my normal habitat where I talk about things in argument form. I do have a little bit of argument here, but not specifically, so we're leaving this as a hypothetical. I believe that they have an intent to alter the history of our comic books, to physically go back and to edit out everything that is not in line with their ideology. Now, I have a few examples outside of comics where this actually happens. So the first example is one that is probably familiar to most people that listen here. It's George Lucas, and it's from the entertainment industry, of course. It's George Lucas and his attempt to alter the history of the universe of Star Wars. Now, he tried to do things like make sure that there were no copies in existence of the Star Wars Christmas special. He wanted to erase that from history. He wanted to erase that completely from the history of the Star Wars universe. He also, when he put out the new edited versions of the first three movies, the oldest first three movies, where Han shoots second, that was to be the official history of his universe from then on. And he wanted to make sure of that by ensuring that no old copies of the originals ever existed again, that all the copies out there were either of VHS or beta, and they degrade pretty quickly, and once they degraded, no one would actually have any copies of this anymore, and therefore it would be forgotten, and no one would know that this was the actual history of his universe. He wanted to quite literally alter the history of it in what you can purchase and what people remembered, and so that there was no evidence of it anymore. So he wanted to do that. So you probably know about that one. The other one is this, which most people don't really know about, is the fact that third wave feminists and SJWs, usually they go on these things called, what are they called? They're called edit parties, where they get together online digitally for a span of time, like a week or a couple of days, and they all get together digitally, and they try to alter things online, especially Wikipedia, and so that they erase all references to things which are contrary to their ideology, and to replace it with things that support their ideology. And the one that I can think of off the top of my head most readily is when they got together for a week to try to go on Wikipedia and erase all scientific evidence, erase all arguments that there is a physical difference between men and women. And they replaced it with everywhere with ideas that the only reason why men are bigger and have more muscle mass, have stronger bones, have a bigger lung capacity, of all of these things that make them physically superior generally, is only because of the patriarchy. Because the institution of the patriarchy in society tells boys to go out and play earlier, and it pushes them out there and tells them to roughhouse. And since they do that from the very beginning of when they're tiny little children, that makes them physically stronger. And that's the only reason why there's a physical difference between men and women, and that all of this scientific evidence doesn't actually exist. So they literally got together. You got a whole bunch of them getting together and editing as many Wikipedia articles as possible to take out anything of this nature that disagreed with their ideology, and to replace it with their own basic lies and the stories that they come up with in order to support their ideology. And this actually happens. This happens to Wikipedia a lot, and I would suggest you don't use Wikipedia anymore. I still rely on my books, and I go to other sources. You never should trust anything that you only get information for online. You should always have corroborating evidence. Anyways, but here's two examples, one from the entertainment world, one from the digital world. And these are places where people actually want to alter history. It's kind of a 1984 kind of way of looking at things, where things fall down the memory hole. They erase anything that is contrary to what they want out there for information. And it actually happens. So what I would suggest is, and my question to you is, that don't you think it's logical that if there is a critical mass of people actually getting their older stories, their backstories from Marvel and DC, from an online source that Marvel or DC controls, don't you think that it's quite plausible that SJWs are going to try and alter the history of those comics? Are going to try to erase word balloons, are going to try to change the wording or even the conversations in some of these comics so that it doesn't have anything in there that is going to contradict what they see in their ideology, and to put in things that support their ideology. I am firmly of the opinion, yes, they are going to do so if they ever get the chance. And again, I'm firmly of the opinion as well, and it's just an opinion though, that this is why the big comic companies don't care about your local comic shop. And I would say not only don't care about them but want them to go away. Want them to go away so that all sales become digital sales and that they get money for it. And I also think that this is the reason why people like Sana Amanat are quite adamant in pushing things for quote-unquote new fans. They want to get rid of us old fans who have stacks of physical comics in our basement, in our closets, things like that. I think this is one of the reasons why they want to do that. Not the main reason, but again, one of the reasons. They don't want us out there. They don't want people who have actual physical copies of these things anymore. They want everything to be digital. They want everything to be digital because they can control the digital and they can alter the digital and they can make money off of the digital. And I think that is one of the things behind that push of getting rid of, not just forgetting about, not just moving on, but actually getting rid of us who have long boxes full of comics. So this is what I see happening very slowly and not as fast as they would like, I'm sure, because I've seen one of the things that since I got back into comics and started buying for my dollar boxes and buying stuff between 2000 and today, I've seen this push for digital comics to change things to digital, and them giving things away for free, giving free quote unquote copies of the digital away if you buy the physical copy. They never actually give anything away for free. It's a way of manipulating you into wanting to simply buy the digital and the digital only. And there is a push, I think, for a number of reasons for that. One, Disney doesn't want to be a publishing company. They just would like to deal with the digital. And digital is much easier to control. Digital is much easier to make money off of again and again and again. So anyway, this short video I just wanted to do because this question keeps sticking in the back of my head the more and more I see things like this Plastic Man incident happening. If any of you have any other incidents of such things happening, let me know. Leave it in the comments, and I can do another video on this later if I have more evidence of things like this happening. All right. If I gave you anything new to think about, hit like, hit subscribe. That's hopefully what I'm here to do, is to give you something new to think about. And you can leave a comment to give me something new to think about, and we can use these ideas to try and make our comic industry better, to try at the very least to defend what we have and to make sure that it continues to exist, hopefully. So I'll see you later. Bye.